All right, I have this Christie HD20K. So I just got these in and did some preliminary testing while getting some listing photos. And this is the unit with higher hours on the lamp. And I noticed a slight image defect in the lower right-hand corner that looks to me like I'm not getting uniform illumination of the DMDs. And I guess the way I'm able to narrow it down to that is I have a second unit over there. I pulled the lamp out of that one and swapped it into this one because that is a known, fully tested, fully working unit. So I know that every component in there and the system as a whole works as it should. So I pulled the lamp out of there and swapped into this one, and the image defect persisted. So I know that it's something with the optical train, which I will go into more detail. I have the side panel pulled off here. So knowing that, I would like to first pull the good lamp out of here and install the original high hour lamp that was inside this unit, just for consistency. And then we'll power it up, and while it's on and displaying a test pattern, we are going to realign the, I guess if you want to call it the input mirror, into the DMD block. And yeah, we should be able to fix this problem relatively simply. So here it is. I believe this is a 18.5K lumen unit. It's the HD20K Roadster. It's a xenon lamp-based projector with a 3 kilowatt xenon lamp module. Let me pull that module out of this projector and we can take a closer look before swapping in the other lamp module. So this is a lamp module out of a Christie HD20K. It might be used in several models. I believe that they run the same modules, just run them at different power, and you get a different life expectancy based off of that power rating that they're running at. So you can see you have a 2-part reflector in there. You can see the front half here and the rear half back here. This is actually just an aluminum shroud. The actual reflector itself, I believe, is IR transparent. So the entire outside of this module is trying to absorb as much infrared before it reaches the DMD block. You can see here, this is all the adjustment screws for adjusting the module, the bulb itself, this way, up and down, and then in and out. So you can see the 3-axis slider in here. Here is the cathode of the lamp. You can see the anode all the way in there, inside that glass bulb there. And it kind of sits in this cradle, with each side of the cradle being one of the electrodes. But yeah, these lamp modules are very, very, very expensive. So replacing them is always a large investment. Even for a low hour projector like this, honestly, the majority of the value and resale value is driven by what condition these lamp modules are in. So if it's a higher hour lamp, then the customer purchasing it has to factor in that they're gonna have to be purchasing a new lamp along with their projector purchase. So that reduces the amount that that they're willing to pay for it. Yeah, you can see here's some more details. It's manufactured by Ushio, which Christie is actually a subsidiary of. Yeah, this is the projector. Let's swap in the other lamp module, and then we'll perform the optical lineup. Okay, so with the bulb reinstalled, I think it's time to take a closer look at the optical train components so you can get familiar with what the light does from the time that it exits the bulb to the time that it enters the light engine, or the actual image generation part of the projector. So, as you can see, as I just showed, the lamp module sits in there, and the reflector faces this way. So all the light that's generated by the lamp is coming out this way. And if we look inside of here, you can see, actually, let me open up the rear lamp. So as you can see, the bulb is pointing this way, and its focal point is focusing down on that mirror. The reason it's reflective on this side is that it's actually another IR transparent optic. Visible light is reflected, going into here and then going into the screen, but IR light is passed through the mirror and it gets absorbed by this IR dump over here. You know, IR isn't visible light. There's really no point in it going inside of the optical train. All it does is build up unnecessary heat, and heat is the number one thing that degrades optics, leads to loss of image quality, leads to electronic component damage, plastics, everything. It's a pretty nasty thing to deal with. So if you can get rid of all the IR and all the UV before it enters the projector optics, the more sensitive optics, that's the name of the game. You can see here, this is the IR and UV dump, or sorry, just the IR dump fan, and it's pointed at this heatsink here. This is back of the lamp door. So now the light has reflected off of this mirror and is traveling this way, and this, I believe, is the contrast adjustment servo. So this is actually adjusting how much stray light is allowed to enter the image block. You'll get a lot of light that's not traveling perfectly here. You'll get scattering off the inside of these walls, which actually does contribute to overall image brightness, but it also leads to uncontrollable light when you want to project something black. So in some cases it's advantageous to have that stray light continue into the optical path, but if you were doing like a cinema showing or somewhere where contrast is more important, you would engage this aperture servo, and that would adjust the amount of stray light that's allowed to enter the image block, like the light that isn't perfectly traveling down, I guess, the center of this light pipe. So that's just depending on your application. And then over here, we get to the, I don't know what the technical name for it is, but I call it the final stage mirror, where the light is reflected up into the TIR prism. And this is actually where we're going to be performing the adjustment, because this changes the angle of incidence of the light going into the prism. So I'll power it up here with the old lamp, and I'll first show you our baseline of what the image looks like now and the issue that we're actually trying to fix, so you get an idea of what this mirror is actually doing. But very quickly, for those that are unfamiliar, up here is the actual image generation part of a commercial projector. You can see one of these PCB assemblies and another identical one over there with another identical one out of sight, with this water cooling loop. And what this is actually 3 micro mirror assemblies, each one for one of the, I guess, primary colors. You have red, green, and blue. And each of those mirrors corresponds to controlling the amount of primary light going into one of the pixels on the displayed image. So every single pixel that you see on a displayed image will have 3 mirrors corresponding to it. One for red, one for green, and one for blue. And those can be flipped to either allow light through or reject light. And by varying the, I guess, duty cycle per frame of each of the component colors, you can blend different amounts of red, green, and blue for every single pixel. And that is how you create individual colors for each pixel, and then the pixels come together to form an image as you see it. So as I said, those mirrors can either allow light through or reject the light based off of where they're tilted. They're microscopic. These mirrors that we're talking about are very, very, very small. And when they're rejected, they go to another light dump, which is probably not going to be visible in the configuration I have it here. But you can see that fan shroud up there is for cooling the light dumps for the DMDs, because that's a lot of heat. For everything that isn't, when you're not projecting full field white for all the DMDs, there's going to be at least 1 pixel of each of the colors that's going to be letting some percentage amount of light not through, and all the light that isn't being let through into the lens is being put onto the light dump, and that generates a certain amount of heat based off of residual IR energy that wasn't rejected by this mirror, and that needs to be dealt with somehow, and that heat is carried away by that fan up there. But yeah, and the chips themselves generate heat and absorb a certain amount of incident light going into them, so they're still water cooled. But yeah, that's the very basics of how a commercial digital projector, a 3 DLP chips projector works. So let's power this thing up. I'll show you how it looks now, and then we will perform the optical adjustment. So you can see here, we're getting a lot of light rejection right now because it's projecting a lot of black. So the light buildup inside of here, all the light that isn't going out the lens is being dumped into here. You can see red and green and a little bit of blue. You can see here, that's all the infrared. It's not as bright as it looks on my phone camera. My phone camera sensor is much more sensitive to the infrared. You can see just how much infrared is being generated by that 3 kilo put out, it's an arc lamp, so it generates a lot of heat. But yeah, so this is the mirror with the light sensor attached to it. And if you can see here, we have one retaining screw. Hold on, it's on focus. So we have one retaining screw and then one adjustment screw. So we're going to first have to break this screw free, and then we're going to be very, very incrementally adjusting this inner screw on each of the three axes. You can see the final one down there, while we're projecting full field white, and that will hopefully resolve our issue. So projecting white, let's see the issue I'm talking about here. So if you look down in that corner, you can see how it's just barely faded. And you can see that it's a little bit reddish. That is, to me, indicating that I'm not getting full light coverage of my DMDs. Oh wow, that's shaky. So we're gonna have to address that. You can see while you're looking at the whole image, it's not too noticeable, but it's a big enough problem to where I would like to address it before I ship it off to a customer. So yeah, let's, while we're keeping this pattern on, we're just going to be adjusting the screw very, very, very slowly, and we'll see if we can't fix this problem. Something interesting I noticed here before we do this repair that gives me more confidence that this is the right issue is if I squeeze this guy. So even though this is locked in place, you can take it and squeeze it very, very gently. And if you look on the screen while I do that, and position my phone, you can see how I'm able to manipulate that bottom corner there. So when I squeeze it in, that's cutting off more of the image. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to break this guy free and move the mirror out just probably one turn of the screw and lock it back into place, and that should be the issue resolved. So that gives me good confidence that this is the repair that we have. So now, let me first break the screw free. This is the retaining screw. Just very, very easy. Just break it free. So now the mirror is free to move. And we're just going to take this screw and turn it. It's crisp. Yeah. There we go. I'll show you exactly what the repair looked like when I was doing it, but it's as easy as that. Let me undo what I just did, and I'll show you what just happened. So if you look in the bottom right corner of that image, you can see right there how it's reddish. I'm now going to adjust the screw and turn it very, very slowly. You can see very clearly how I'm able to readjust and get full illumination of that DMD. Let me just retighten that guy. make sure the torque on each of the screws is similar. Almost there. Alright, so I'm happy with that. So now let's take a step back. Let's inspect the whole image. So now, if we look at the whole image, we inspect all four corners. Ignore my garage. You can see they're all equally illuminated. Very, very clean. And if we take a step back and look at the brightness uniformity, which is another thing that adjustment changes. We want to make sure that we're getting even brightness across the whole projected surface. So let's get another test pattern up and we can make sure that we're fully repaired here. So with this grid pattern, let's take a look. So good, 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 good. All right, well, I'm happy with this. This projector is projecting a very clean image. You can see from the white lines here that the convergence is very, very, very good. The convergence being the alignment between the red, green, and the blue DMDs. So overall, I'm satisfied with this projector now. I think this is ready to be resold to a customer. All the other, I guess, functions have been tested already. This is just something I highlighted while I was doing my listing, and it was something I wanted to address before I shipped it off to a customer. One thing I do want to note is that this is not just a retaining screw. The way, I guess, that they designed it is that this one is going to be putting force on this plate this way, and the inner one is going to be drawing it in. So you kind of, when you get it in a set place, you have to start, this is going to be very confusing. But you have to make sure that when in the mirror in its position that you want it, you want equal amounts of torque on each of these screws, because you want their forces to counteract, and over time you don't want one to loosen the other. So as close as you can get it, ideally you have a torque wrench for this, but you'd want to torque each of them to the same amount so that you're getting even force through this plate. So I guess it wasn't like the lens mount, because in the lens mount you'll have one screw that's locking the other one by applying force and pushing against the lens mount, and then the other one is what's controlling the actual distance from the plate to the frame of the projector. But with these, the inner screw is not bonded to this plate. Like, I could just loosen this inner one. All that isn't a threaded insert or retaining screw that it's in. You just need to balance the force between these two. That might be confusing, I'm sure, for the individuals that might be applying this to their xenon projectors. Would have a little bit of a better sense if they were boots on the ground here. But, you know, if you make fine adjustments and you see what each screw does, I think that it would be very, very clear. Very good. I have adjusted the other screws, made sure that they're all in place. You can see here, image is good. This is a projector ready for resale. Yeah, very nice. These are good units. Very easy to work on. There you go.